Psalms 1. Here the psalmist begins by distinguishing the difference between the blessed and the wicked, the righteous and the unrighteous, path of righteousness and the path of wickedness. This psalm was written around 444 BC, either by David or Ezra. Read Nehemiah chapter 13. Psalms chapter 1 verses 1. Blessed is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked. Taking a step or counsel speaks of advice, consulting together, exchange of counsel, or to conspire together, or stand in the way that sinners take. A sinner is someone who is exposed to condemnation, an offender, a criminal, or one accounted as guilty, or sit in the company of mockers. A mocker is someone who is scornful, boastful, and one who talks arrogantly. A question that you can ask yourself is, who is blessed? And what are the blessings? The Hebrew word for blessing is asher, which means happiness, blessedness. Let us look at a few verses that will give us more understanding to the word blessed. Job chapter 5 verses 17. Happy is the one whom God corrects. So do not despise the discipline of the Almighty. Psalms 2 verses 12. Happy are all who take refuge in Him. Blessed are all who take refuge in Him. Psalms 32 1. Blessed is the one whose transgressions are forgiven, whose sins are covered. Psalms 32 verses 2. Blessed or happy is the one whose sin the Lord does not count against them and in whose spirit is no deceit. Psalms 33 verses 12. Blessed or happy is the nation whose God is the Lord. Psalms 1 verses 2. But whose delight is in the law of the Lord, and who meditates on his law day and night. To meditate on the word of God speaks of actions like to utter, to moan, to growl, used of growling of a lion over its prey, to murmur in pleasure or anger, and to study. There are other instances in the Bible where the word meditation is also used, and we will look at it later on in our study. How do you delight in the law of the Lord? Who meditates on the law of the Lord? The Hebrew word for delight is chepetz, which means acceptable, favor, will, take pleasure in, desire, be pleased with. So let us look at a few verses that will give us more understanding to the word delight. Psalm 16 verses 3. I say of the holy people who are in the land, they are the noble ones, in whom is all my delight. Numbers 14:8. If the Lord is pleased with us, He will lead us into that land, a land flowing with milk and honey, and will give it to us. Deuteronomy 25 verses 8. Then the elders of his town shall summon him and talk to him. If he persists in saying, I do not want to marry her. Do you understand the context of the word delight? Psalms chapter 1 verses 3. That person is like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in season, and whose leaf does not wither. The action behind to wither is to be foolish, to treat with contempt, to fall, to sink, or drop down, to fade, to despise, and to be faint. Whatever they do prospers. So what kind of fruit is produced? The Hebrew word for fruit is perie, which means produce of the ground. Let us look at a few verses that will give us more understanding of the word fruit. Psalms 92 verses 13. Planted in the house of the Lord, they will flourish in the courts of our God. Numbers 13:20. How is the soil Is it fertile or poor? Are there trees in it or not? Do your best to bring back some of the fruit of the land. It was a season of first ripe grapes. Psalms 132 verses 11. The Lord swore an oath to David, a sure oath he will not revoke. One of your own descendants I will place on your throne. So fruit can also mean a son or a daughter. Psalms 1 verses 4. Not so the wicked, they are like chaff that the wind blows away. Chaff is the husk separated from the grain by winnowing and is always driven by wind. Who are the wicked? What do the wicked do? The Hebrew word for wicked is rasha, which means ungodly, guilty one, hostile to God, morally wrong, condemned, having an unrighteous cause. So let us look at a few verses that will give us more understanding of the word wicked. Genesis chapter 18 verses 23. Then Abraham approached him and said, Will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked? Exodus 9:27. Then Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron. This time I have sinned, he said to them. The Lord is in the right, and I and my people are in the wrong. Job 18 verses 5. The lamp of the wicked man is snuffed out. The flame of his fire stops burning. Proverbs 14:9. Fools mock at making amends for sin, but goodwill is found among the upright. Psalms 1 verses 5. Therefore the wicked will not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the assembly of the righteous. Verses 6. For the Lord watches over the way of the righteous. To watch means to know, perceive, to recognize, to be instructed, to teach, to declare, to shew. So when God says that I am the one who watches over the righteous, He is teaching them, He is training them, He is teaching them to recognize what is right, what is wrong. And whatever the Lord knows, He is putting it inside of them. Just as a father teaches his son, the Lord teaches us as His children. But the way of the wicked leads to destruction. How does the Lord watch over the righteous? Does the Lord not watch over the wicked? These are some of the questions that I have asked. The Hebrew word for righteous is tzaddik, which means just, righteous in conduct and character, someone who is correct, someone who is in the right. Let us look at a few verses that will give us more understanding to the word righteous. Genesis 6 verses 9. This is the account of Noah and his family. Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and he walked faithfully with God. Exodus chapter 23 verses 7. Have nothing to do with a false charge, and do not put an innocent or honest person to death, for I will not acquit the guilty. Deuteronomy 16:19. Do not pervert justice or show partiality. Do not accept a bribe, for a bribe blinds the eyes of the wise and twists the words of the innocent. Psalms 34 verses 19. The righteous person may have many troubles, but the Lord delivers him from them all. So in summary, blessed is the one who consults with the Lord, whose transgressions are forgiven, and who is not boastful, for he takes pleasure in the word of God and studies it day and night. He is a fruit-bearing tree that is firmly planted, bubbling up to produce and deliver its offspring to the towns, villages, or settlements, and will not treat with contempt his actions, and as a result he will prosper in everything he does. The wicked are morally wrong and condemned. Their fruit will wither and be blown away by the wind. The Lord knows and instructs the righteous, leading them far away from the wicked. The wicked are not instructed, but are judged and condemned.